Thank you, Lou. And before I start, just thank you to Jody and the whole NFT.NYC team. It's been an awesome conference. I think a really impressive effort, given the year that we've had in putting this all together. And thank you all for being here. I know it's tough to motivate after a few nights of events and socializing, but I appreciate you being here. Okay, so let's look at how to assess the value and behavior of an NFT community, looking at it really at how NFTs offer a transformative way for us to address three age-old questions being faced by brands and marketers, that being, one, what's the value and buying power of my community, of my audience? Two, what's the behavior of my audience? And three, who are the true influencers in my space? Okay, and we'll start with looking at the best way to measure the value of a Web3 community. And we're going to take a look at a few different types of NFT communities, that come from a few different places, but the first one we'll look at is Azuki. So this is the Web3 Sense TVC, the total value of the community, and I'll tell you a little bit about our methodology, just for starters. One, we're just looking at floor prices here. Two, we're only looking at Ethereum assets. And three, we're not looking at the overall Azuki community necessarily here, like Beans and others. We're just looking at just this collection, just to keep it simple. But we can look at overall communities and other chains. So the three legs of the stool in determining the TVC would be the collection value. That's really easy. That's just the floor price multiplied by the total supply. The second leg of the stool is total liquid ETH holdings in the wallets of a community's token holders. So in this case, Azuki token holders, when I took this snapshot, had roughly 70,000 ETH in their wallets liquid. And then we take a look at all the other NFTs that Azuki holders own and put all that together. That was about 316,000 ETH, okay? You put all that together, and at the time of the spot price, it was just under $700 million US, okay? And that's a big number. It's probably bigger than a lot of people might think. And I'm happy to report that, since we took this snapshot, a couple things have happened. The floor price of Azuki is up to 14.7, and the spot price of Ethereum has gone from 1,600 to 2,100 today, right? It's up 3.5% for the last 24 hours, which is nice. So that number is actually over 800 million. And I think that when we're talking to people who are kind of dipping their toes in the water and looking at Web3 or NFT communities and thinking about activation, maybe thinking about career risk that they might be taking on if they push forward within their shop to do an NFT drop or to build a Web3 community, I think what they really have to get their brains around is that these are really big communities with a lot of buying power, and you can measure them. And I think putting the measurement terms in a language that they understand will help drive more and more activity in the space. All right, so that's the TVC. A couple other things on this slide before I move on. One would be the liquidity present in this community or in this collection. So you see here it's about 127 million US. That's actually upwards of 180 million today. All right, also a big number. It also means there's just tons of money within this collection's holders that they can spend on other tokens or tokens that Azuki might do in collaboration with other brands. And then finally, ENS percentage, that's the percentage of Azuki token holders that have an ENS, a .ETH, okay? And that's 26%. I'll get into why that's an important metric later. So here we'll look at Bud versus Heritage cans, right? Totally different type of collection. There's a CPG activation that dropped that was in November of 21, so obviously that was kind of the peak of the market. But you see the TVC here is upwards of 37 million. That's actually $42 million today. All right, it's a pretty big number. And also here, even though the overall value of the Bud vs. Heritage cans collections might not be a massive number, it might be down from what it might have been at mint, it's still a robust community when you look at the buying power that's present there. And you can see there too, the community liquidity is around 8 million. It's actually a little over 11 million when I checked our dashboard today. Okay, so AB InBev has built a Web3 community really from scratch, working, they worked with Vayner3, and you'll see in a second, all the different Vayner collections that their community resonates with. But, they built this community, and now they have this direct relationship with about 1,200 token holders that are holding $11 million in liquid ETH. Think of all the things they can do in terms of cross-collaborative marketing efforts or joint projects, and go to the table and say, hey, I'm bringing you a community that's got $11 million to spend today. Never mind all their other assets and other tokens and digital assets. Never mind their disposable income and fiat. All right, so this is community overlap analysis. And now we're getting into the behavior and how, what resonates with folks and what are they into. And this is one of my favorite ways to look at communities. So I don't know how well you can see it in the audience, but we're just kind of doing a compare and contrast of Azuki and Budverse Heritage cans here. And you always see affiliated collections at the top. That's so Beans for Azuki, Bud Light next, and some other, the Budverse Live scoreboard for FIFA. That's pretty understandable. But then you're going to see lots of different collections that obviously are outside of these collections and communities where there's a good amount of overlap. So we can take a look at the percentage of wallet holders that are holding tokens in other collections and communities. We can look at the number, like the absolute number and the percentage of wallets. And then we can look at the TVC overlap. So that's where you're looking at the total wealth that, let's say somebody who holds an Azuki and holds a Clone X, you can see there is a significant amount of wealth among those wallets out there that hold at least one of each. So that's interesting. And that, think about as more and more brands activate or do NFT drops, more sports teams, more POAPs in the, out there in the community. Think of all the possibilities for brands to take a look at what's resonating with certain communities. Then they can approach those creators or those NFT creators, artists, other NFT brands, and really just completely activate and have a new and improved way to engage with the community through these cross collaborations. Okay, so here's another thing we can look at, persona analysis. Our data science team took a look at everybody in the Budverse community and found that 33% of people who minted a Budverse Heritage can flipped within the first week. That was kind of interesting, and that was back during the day where you could mint a CPG token and maybe double your money in a few days. Quite a few swing traders in here too, but we have the ability to look at people who are really what we call holders or believers, people that get into a community and are there for the long haul. Speaking of which, here are 4 different collections in their network graphs, which are also fun to geek out on. So you look at VFriends, okay? So you look at Crypto Dick Butts and Doodles. They have those dark blue centers represent really active trading activity, and then you see those whiskers on the outside. Those tend to be really high-priced tokens that are changing hands among a small number of people. But then you look at Budverse Heritage cans, not nearly as many tokens, not as much activity, so that looks about what maybe a more typical brands community might look like. Then you got VFriends, which is its own unique collection. You've got this community that's got quite a bit of active trading in that center, but then you've got all these different nodes on the outside that kind of form a donut or a ring there. Those are the people that obviously are in it for the long haul. They love Gary V's vision, the vision of his team, and they also want to go to VCon for a few years. So you think about utility that exist within these NFTs and how that might drive behavior and the way things get memed or networked within a community. That's like one of the most interesting network charts we've seen, and one that I point to for some of our clients that are looking to build something for the long haul. Okay, then we look at, remember I talked about ENS percentage. We take .ETH holders, and then about 30% of most communities. We go to Twitter, we find a ton of them on Twitter that have them in their handle or in their profile, and then we analyze whether or not they're actually holding tokens about the collections they're tweeting about. When they don't, it's typically just noise. But when they do, right, we took a look at Crypto Dick Butts for this guy who traded it a lot and found that people who were holding a Crypto Dick Butt token and tweeted about it induced or catalyzed, on average, 7 additional transactions on chain for every tweet. And the lag for that was about 3 to 4 days, with most of the activity ensuing in the ensuing 24 hours. So anyway, plenty more to talk about. I'll be outside there if you want to continue the discussion. You can find us at web3sense.ai. But the 3 main conclusions are NFTs offer brands a transformative way to connect with their audiences and turn them into communities. The analysis of the overlap will present all kinds of new and improved ways to do successful cross-collaborative efforts. And thirdly, I know the term democratize gets thrown around a lot in this space, but think about all the genuine enthusiasts that are already in Web3 who are already being reached out to by brands and teams and others that they love to be their influencers and be their brand ambassadors and drivers of community engagement. It's a really exciting time. It's only gonna, I think, explode and grow from here on out. Thank you again for your time. Have a great weekend and safe travels home.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Let's give him a big hand. This is a great talk.